What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I made a short pretty much describing that, you know, could you see the paint defect that GM left? And it really wasn't a defect. And if you look real closely, it's not the swirl marks. Every car has swirl marks. And I'll get to that in just a little bit. If you look really close on the header panel, it's the panel right in front of the hood, probably be part of the bumper cover on that car. It looks like a little checkerboard pattern. Whoever buffed that car out, maybe they saw a defect, maybe they were just nibbing and buffing. And nibs, pretty much nothing, it's just a little piece of dirt that gets trapped in the clear coat. The clear coat gets hard. I've even got one in the deck lid of my car. It's easily fixed by taking just a little, I mean, they have whetstones. There's a bunch of solutions you can take to it, but essentially it just needs to be sanded flat and then polished back up to a shine. That's all it is. Whoever found a flaw at the factory did nothing but they just were hurrying through, and I can absolutely understand because they were saying they make like 400 and some cars per shift. That's a lot. I can absolutely see why they would, you know, maybe miss a spot or whatever. As soon as I pop the hood, you can see 2 stains from the buffing compound. That's gonna be a nightmare to get out, but nonetheless, I didn't do it. It's from the factory. I have not touched this car yet, so I had to buy a few pieces. It's been a while since I knocked off some dust on the old buffer, but it's all good because that gives me content to make for you guys. So you guys get to hang out with me, maybe learn a little bit of thing about paint or two. Everybody, when I say buffing a car, polishing a car, whatever, they revert back to those polishers that have like the crazy orbit to them, and that's a dual action polisher. That thing is, it's more of a novelty item to me. Those polishers barely work, and they are nothing. I mean, they try to make it dummy proof as possible. That way you don't burn your paint, because it's just wiping with a towel on steroids. That's all it is. For those of you out in your driveway, you know, you got with your tongue out and really getting after it, thinking that you're really doing something. Whatever floats your boat, I guess, right? But it's not doing very much, and it's doing very minimal for your paint. Those polishers, and I've got an old Snap-on. I don't know if it's gonna focus in on that. Snap-on, I've had this thing for like years, over a decade. Whoever makes Snap-on DAs, because this is a DA sander, and this has got the same, I don't know if you can see it or not. It's very fine, but it moves. It's called dual action because it moves in orbit and it will spin while it's moving in an orbit at the same time. Dual action. You can get these things with like a bigger orbit to them or a tighter, finer orbit. They have different uses. I can make another video on that if you want to know the differences on DA sanders. If not, that's cool too. Whoever sanded that header panel on my car, all they did was they buffed it. They did not spend enough time buffing it to bring the shine back out. Now, I don't know what they're doing at the factory as far as sanding or how they're nibbing and buffing. I'm gonna tell you this, compared to my SS, my ZL1 paint, either I got lucky or they spend more time on the ZL1s, because the orange peel is just a little flatter on this car. In a high quality paint job, that's what you're looking for, is just the smoother the texture, the better. Now, on the flip side of that is to get the paint, the color, primer, clear, all of it, from bare metal to the top of the clear coat, they have to reduce the paint with reducer, and all this stuff, you know, the catalyst, the everything, even the solvents in the resin of the paint itself before you put reducer or hardener in, all this stuff is liquid, and you have to thin this liquid down to a certain viscosity to make it flow through the paint gun to be able to spray on the car. Eventually, at some point in time, and that's exactly why it takes a long time for all them solvents to purge out of the paint job. You know, that's why they say like 90 to 120 days. Sometimes, you know, I'm really thinking more on the lines of like 4 to 6 months. The swirl marks you can get rid of. What causes swirl marks is pretty much just day-to-day use. Now I have heard from certain paint manufacturer companies, I'm not gonna name any names, I've had this been explained to me, and it makes sense to me physically because, you know, back when new cars sat on the lot, if you walked into a dark color, black color especially, you would still be able to see like the halo, the spider web in the paint. Now that car's new, it's sitting there. It's not doing anything, it's not getting washed, it's not getting hand scrubbed, it's not going through the day-to-day abuse to even have swirl marks being put into it, but yet they're there. So this kind of makes sense to me because, you know, all them solvents coming out, they call this micro shrinking. So the whole paint job is actually getting smaller because of all those solvents coming out of the paint job, evaporating into the atmosphere. So in order to combat that, you need to sand and buff your car. It's no big deal. Now this is a straight shaft buffer. This is my buffer, and I've had this DeWalt for years. I think that, man, just a straight shaft polisher. I think the part number on this is 849. Yeah, it says right there. DW 849. So you can have ambidextrous, so you can have a left hand or a right hand. This polisher is great, but I'm gonna tell you what, it is heavy. And there is, if you don't already have a polisher, I don't know if I would start with this one. If I had to do it all over again and I could recommend a polisher, if you don't have one already, I would say get something lightweight, because when you're standing there buffing, man, in your neck and in your back and in your shoulders, you're gonna feel it. So this is pretty much standard. I'll get my face out of the way. This is pretty much standard. So you're gonna have, this is a 5/8 by 11 thread pitch. Pretty much, here's your standard backing pad. And I had to order this, I had to reorder this one because I went to the garage and pulled out my old, you know, the backing plate that was already on this. And this has got Velcro, what they call hook it, but it's actually like Velcro. Spins right on, there you go. I would actually buy something with a slow start. This one's really only got 2 speeds. It's either park or it's drive. I mean, this thing is, it is just instant start. It does have a variable speed here, so you can change the speeds. You're gonna need that because a lot of different compounds like to be spun at different speeds. I've noticed that I like to go as slow as I can when I'm cutting, and I think this one goes down to 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 RPMs. So pretty much the range, if you can get below that, some of them, you know, sometimes that's better. If you can get down to like 750, 800 RPMs, that's better. Get something with the slow start so it doesn't just like spin and sling your compound because it's gonna be wasting. Also, this stuff, that compound it's almost like tattoo ink, man. If you get compound sling on like plastic parts or whatever, some of you already know this. It's almost impossible to get off. Get something with a slow start, lightweight, ambidextrous handle, and definitely variable speed. Minimum 1,000. If you can get down under 1,000, great. You know, sometimes I would probably go up to like 2,500 or 3,000. If I had to do it all over again, that would be the attributes that I would be looking for in a different polisher. Get tired of holding that thing already. So moving from the polisher to the compound. Now these, you're gonna have 3 different stages. The white is 1, black is 2, blue is 3. And the compound, these used to be used with wool pads, but the technology has changed. I think they've kind of realized over the years that it's not actually like physical media, because these used to have like a little grit. Like step 1, we used to have like a little fine grit to it. Not anymore. They've actually realized that the heat is what actually gets that top coat of the clear wherever the buffer is rubbing to actually get that clear coat to flow back out and glaze over, and that's where you're gonna get your polishing at. What they do differently, think of these things as like different levels of friction modifiers. So this one's gonna produce a lot of drag as far as, you know, compared to the other two. but this one's where most of the work's gonna be done. You can get these are pints. So here's a part number for the pint. I'll go through these one by one here for you. So, and there are different brand manufacturers that make different brands of different compounds, and I'm sure they all work pretty well. As long as you're using a straight shaft buffer with them and you know how to buff to a degree. I mean, this is not rocket science. The heat on the panel is what's gonna get that paint to flow back out and glaze over and bring a shine back to it. Also, side note, make sure the things has like OE factory panels, because a lot of aftermarket panels, they made them out of thinner metal. This is something you need to pay attention to, because you know, thinner metal is gonna heat up quicker. It could warp, it could have like an oil can effect, it could do, you know, you could dent it if you push too hard on it. Little tip, I had to learn the hard way a couple times. This is going to cut from, I believe, like a 1200, here I'll just, yeah, removed 1200 grit and finer sand scratch marks. If you're in my situation and you have like swirl marks or whatever, something else that you want to take care of, and in addition to maybe swirl marks, maybe there's a run in the paint, maybe you found another nib, maybe there was a scratch or whatever, you know, you can block it down with like 1200, 1500. This will get it out, but then I would also bring it up, and I learned that these things got discontinued for a while. But these actually go up to, and there's Hook It. These things are actually kind of worth the money, and you'll see there's like a shimmer to it. If you look, you can see like a glare to it. You can get these things in 3,000. This is 5,000. But these things will dramatically reduce your buffing time. And any of the imperfections, keep the panel wet, just DA this thing, it will produce a slurry. These actually, the sand medium, the grit, is actually little pyramids, and they're stacked in an orientation that is uniform and even across the panel. So they go quick, they're expensive, but if you're just doing one car, yeah, it might be worth the investment rather than sitting there trying to, you know, keep going at it with this. So another little tip I would look into, if you have a DA sander, so you can get different backing plates, buy a different backing plate with Hook It. Man, that's on there. Yeah. So that's just Velcro as well. Just spend a little bit of time working that out. Just keep the panel wet, like I said, and huge saver. I mean, all this stuff, you're gonna be into it for about $500-600. I'll just be upfront with you. I had to go back through and buy this backing plate. Like I said, this thing was like $70. In order to pay someone to do this, you're probably gonna be looking, you know, I would say to kind of revive the paint on your car, I would be, you know, maybe $600-700, you know, all the way up to like $3,000-3,500 maybe. This is a time-consuming process. It's not hard, but it does consume a lot of time, and it is something that you need to do correctly. You notice with all these compounds, the pads are the same color. So obviously you're gonna have step 1, step 2, step 3, and these things are different. Like this is a lot firmer. Step 1 is a lot firmer. Step 2 is a little bit softer, and step 3 is the softest of them yet. These foam pads, this is actually what they call a wafer pad, a wafer face pad. Now, you do want to practice on getting these things perfectly centered on your buffer, because you do not want them being out of center or out of round, having a bunch of run out, because that can also cause some pigtails or swirl marks that you're going to leave in your paint. So I know that 3M does make a adapter that spins right on that shaft. I will not use those because I will not risk the center of that adapter poking through the pad and actually gouging the paint. I've heard of it happening. I'm not gonna chance it, and it's probably not likely going to happen, but nonetheless, I'm not chancing it. I will spend a little bit of time, you know, sitting there fidgeting with my pad to make sure it's perfectly centered on my buffer. So no big deal. Now, getting back to the wafer face of these pads, these fingers, the texture pad. Now, this is not to actually get down in nooks and crannies like I originally thought they would be, but it's actually to create little pockets of air. And this is nothing more than it is heat control. So the hotter you want it, you can mash these fingers flat. I believe that these are all open cell foam, but the step 1 is a lot firmer than 2, and 2 is a lot firmer than 3. You definitely want to make sure that you have even pressure, and you want the face of the pad on the panel 100%, as much as you can, especially these new cars. These new cars are getting angles, you know, not really like sharp angles, but you know, sometimes they're getting curves, but really it's hard to find a straight edge or a flat surface on any of these new cars, but you definitely need to do your best to find just that straight edge. Stay away from corners, stay away from edges. And when it comes up to an edge, it will burn the paint like that. I mean, you won't even have any indicator. Be buffing, and then all of a sudden you'll see a burn through spot and you'll be like, oh my God. Stay away from the edges, especially if you're new. I think I've yammered on long enough. That's pretty much the basics of it. A lot of this stuff is heat control. I'm gonna try to duplicate this the best I can. I don't know how much time I'm gonna be able to show you guys spin buffing outside, but I'm gonna use natural light. I like to have an inside light source where I have controlled light bars. You know, like fluorescent lights or whatever. That works the best. I just don't have that available to me anymore. After I sold everything and, you know, moved away from where I was, now all I have is a little garage at my apartment, which is fine. I can make do with it. If you have just swirl marks or whatever, you can chase it out with the Trizact pad. Don't go in any more aggressive than like a 3000. You might cause more problems than what you're able to dig yourself out of. This is gonna get you probably up to about 50% gloss. So this is gonna take you from a dull finish to probably 40 or 50% gloss. This is gonna do a lot of the work. And I know this, if you own a shop, be honest, this is where you quit, isn't it? Because this is gonna take you from that 40 to about 85 to 90% gloss. This is pretty much gonna look like a brand new car. This one is the one that gets overlooked a lot. The third and final step, a lot of people don't like to spend the time. A lot of people, you know, like I said, you're probably gonna have at least a day in doing this. Because you know, you think about going over every panel, and this is where owning a bright colored car, it's gonna work in your favor a lot. You're gonna find out. Black colored cars, man, nothing looks better, but you're gonna find out they're a huge pain in the ass to get clean and buff to a perfect shine. Number 3, it's gonna get you there. It's gonna take you that 85 all the way up to 100, maybe a little bit more. Now, the best way to tell if you have gotten this done, because a lot of this is oil, it's a silicone oil kind of. Whatever flaws or imperfections that you think are gone or look gone, you think it looks amazing, it might rain, you take it through the car wash. As soon as the soap hits it and washes all this stuff off, that flaw is still there. That defect is still there. The sand scratch, the swirl, or whatever. That's why I said don't go with too an aggressive abrasive. Stick with the 3000 to 5000. You're gonna have a lot better results, and it's gonna be a lot easier. And yeah, you're just not gonna be as discouraged to do it the next time, because literally, but anybody can do this. And once you have everything bought in, you're good, you're golden, and you can do this to any car. The caveat is, whenever you're sitting there rubbing and polishing on this car, you are slowly wearing that clear down. Now this really isn't doing that much as far as like the compounds go, but this is removing clear coat from your paint job. And you know, paint in of itself across the board, this stuff is only made to last 10 years. That's it. So they want you to buy the car new, pay it off. Yeah, you'll have a couple years to drive it, and you know, it'll look pretty nice. That's all they designed this stuff to make. Does it go a lot further? Yeah, I've seen a lot of people really get the mileage out of their base coat, clear coat. I don't know how this is gonna work out. I might take the DSLR out there to get some before and after shots. I'm gonna do my best, guys. If you have any questions or anything, boom, drop them below. I will do my best to get back to everybody, and I will do my best to help you out. So here we go. 1 week later, here we are. Okay, I got the car not finished. That section is finished. I'll show it here. I'll just show you the before and after, side by side. Did anybody catch it? Do a color correction because the color correction is nothing more than a color revival. If the clear coat gets foggy, hazy, or whatever, it kind of makes the color look dull. You can cut all that off, buff it, bring the color back up, and you can, you know, pretty much intensify the saturation, the hue of the color, and restore it to back what it was originally. That's all color correction is. I would say that this is probably more like a surface reconditioning. I don't know. I suppose you could also call it, you know, finishing Chevrolet's job, but I'm not digging in on them. I'm not going in after them. These people work really hard and they're cranking out a lot of cars per shift. I understand that, you know, 400 and some is actually like the maximum, but I don't know what these people are doing a shift, but I understand there is a lot of work in these people are working hard. And myself, I've let stuff like this go out the door, you know, as far as having work that's, you know, you might miss a spot or whatever. Black, especially if you have a black car, oh my God, you're gonna find out. They're kind of a pain to deal with, but they look really good. Getting back on topic, here was my attack was that afternoon, I had to get this car done. Well, that one section, at least the section that I videoed for you guys. So like I said before, if you're gonna do this, it takes a long time. I mean, you could spend a day or two doing this to any car. Now the swirl marks, like I said, the swirl marks are still in it. They're over the entire car. Like I said, if you're going to want those out of there, you're gonna need a sand, at least with like a Trizac 3000, 5000. Then you can pretty much repeat the process, but I did nothing more than just finish what whoever started buffing didn't do, and they just, you know, they didn't work the compound, the step one compound enough, and therefore I just followed the process and brought the shine right back up, finished the job, no big deal. The back taping, I back taped everything off, and this film that I used to cover pretty much the entire car, because compound sling is a serious headache, and unless you have like a pressure washer and you can keep this stuff wet and you're gonna wash it straight away, you really need to bag this car. That's a term they use in the paint world, bagging the car. It's pretty much nothing but taking this plastic film, and the nice part about it is the center line of the film is where it says, you know, paint here, spray here, whatever. They all say something different. They might have their brand name, whatever. But that's usually the center line of this plastic. And the awesome part about it is it's folded over twice in on itself. Pulling it apart is actually what causes static cling. It will stick to the car. Eventually over time, if it's worked enough, it will lose that static cling, and, you know, wind or stuff will get under it. It was kind of weird dealing with it outside. I've never used this stuff outside. But nonetheless, I kind of use another method. You can actually like tear a hole in this stuff and use a piece of tape, and you can stick it anywhere. Anywhere that has a non-porous surface or tape will stick to. You can use that little method or a little trick to get this plastic to stay down. I pretty much nothing, you know, you don't have to cover the entire car. I covered half. If you're going to be doing multiple panels, you can seal off wherever you're not going to be buffing. 3M, you know, there's multiple companies that make tape in various widths. I usually like the paperback tape. The green works pretty good. Some people like the yellow. Sometimes it leaves a little adhesive behind, but you know, just don't leave it on there very long and don't be using a bunch of chemicals on it and you should be fine. I use the green as a demo to show you guys. You can go in between the gaps. That way you're not getting compound in there and then you have to spray it off or dig it out with a brush or you know, whatever. That way you're not causing any more complications. You can just peel the tape off, you know, wash the car as normal, and the job looks outstanding with minimal effort to clean up. Just take a razor blade, be very, very careful. Just take your time if you don't know what you're doing, because if you cut the paint, you're gonna have to sand it, and if you cut too deep, you're gonna have to repaint it. Be very, very careful. I would rather cut the tape than I would cut the paint. If you do cut the tape, just put another piece of tape over it, you're good. The sun was setting, I was running out of time, so I kind of had to get like perfect examples. This is a perfect example of like the maximum amount of run out I would allow on a buffer pad. As I said before, once the thing gets off center and it starts running around, you know, kind of like the DA here, it itself will kind of leave pigtails in your paint. Not really as drastic as what you think, but if you get it in the correct light, you can see it and you're doing nothing but chasing your tail. So just make sure you get the buffing pad centered the first time. The cutting, I usually do pretty slow. And like I said, if you're using on a car with aftermarket sheet metal, it could warp easier. All these heat ranges change. It's a moving target and you kind of just have to get experience in knowing how to gauge how long to stay on a panel, how hard to press the buffer. You'll understand once you do it. I took kind of a thermal gun here and you can see on, you know, just like the same panel, just maybe a foot to the left, after I buffed, and you gotta think, this is a plastic substrate. Once I took the buffer off, took the time, set the buffer down, then put the infrared gun on the panel, it had quite a bit of time to cool down, at least a couple seconds. So I would say, you know, it was double the temperature, but base coat, clear coat, you definitely don't want to get it over like 200, 250. This stuff, it's really not, it's not as tough as powder coating, and I would say maximum like 300 degrees. This is why you really don't see a whole lot of like brake calipers painted. Base coat, clear coat, you're gonna get a lot more variety of colors. The color range is gonna be a lot more broad than powder coating, but powder coating is way, way more tough. So if that's something you're thinking about doing, valve covers, yeah, intake plenum, yeah, but anything beyond that, this stuff really likes to stay in the heat range of about 300, 350 degrees. Really take the time to prep. You know, preparation is a lot of this for, you know, to have a successful buff job. Take your time. Like I said, if you're gonna have artificial light source, which that's what I prefer, I try to stay under like a LED light or a fluorescent light strip. Don't look into the light strip, kind of look just beyond those, and that will show you exactly. Take that light bar and just walk it across the panel and you'll be able to see all the flaws, all the, you know, mistakes or things that you need to fix. Take time to pay attention to detail. Take time to really work that paint back to a gloss level. The end result will show it. Like I said, guys, if you have any questions, drop it below. I will do my very best to answer all your questions. I hope this helped. If you took anything away from this video, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Other than that, I hope you guys are having an awesome day. Take care, and we'll see you on the next video. Later.